Good morning all. Right, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, democracy, the rule of law, equal rights regardless of race, sex or sexuality. David Cameron says this is what defines us as a society. To belong here is to believe these things. So, what happens when those values clash? Should we tolerate the intolerant? He's basically trying to root out bigotry here, Peter Hitchens. We've got plenty of homegrown bigots, though, haven't we?
Oh, we have plenty of homegrown bigots, but I just take exception to a number of things that he says. The idea of muscular liberalism, for instance, it's like rigid jelly or an angry whelp. It's just something that doesn't happen. Liberalism is by its nature not muscular. And the other thing is he seems to define Britishness as a form of political correctness. You can't live here unless you sign up to equality and diversity, rather than you can't live here unless you accept that the Christian religion is our prime source of morality and law.
But on the
basics, would seem to me to be a much better basis.
On the basics, we can sign up to like equality by race, equality by sexuality, equality by gender, a belief in democracy, or should we tolerate those who don't believe any of those
toleration
things?
and equality are two different things. Toleration, apart from anything else, implies disapproval. I tolerate you. I don't like what you do. I tolerate you because I'm a civilized person who's prepared to share my society with you, even though I don't like you. So it's not the same thing.
Connor, one man's intolerance is another's deeply held belief. We know that from this programme.
Absolutely, but I think the very possibility of being liberal, the very possibility of holding any belief has to be the thing that grounds it. And that means that there's certain forms of belief which destroy that, which we cannot tolerate.
Like?
Well, fascism, all manner of sort of reductive philosophies.
What is called Islamism, for example?
Well, certain elements, certain strains of certain interpretations, yeah, absolutely.
When you say not tolerate, do you mean make illegal? Prevent them from speaking, ban their organisations?
Yes, absolutely.
So
But I would say the same about Christians. But I would say the same about Christians. I would say the same about... I think if you...
But freedom of speech, where does that come in?
But you have to... If the thing that you're saying is actually undermining the notion of speech itself, you know, if you're saying, for example, say you're a fascist and you go, well, Jews aren't really people, right? You're undermining an entire group of people and reducing them to the inhuman. It's self-refuting.
Well, Baroness Afshar, let me put something else, if I may, that David Cameron said, which is really interesting in this speech. And he's not the first leading politician to express these sentiments. I mean, he's gone further with this phrase muscular and aggressive, but it could have been a speech by Tony Blair or David Blunkett or John Reid. It's been endorsed by David Blunkett, for example. And he said, when a white person holds objectionable views, racism, for example, we rightly condemn them. But when equally unacceptable views or practices have come from someone who isn't white, we've been too cautious, frankly, even fearful to stand up to them. Do you think there is any validity in that?
I think that this is an argument that I did have with David Blunkett when he started talking about community cohesion. I think, of course, we have to counter injustice wherever we see it. What worries me is the assumption that it's only Muslims who have practices that go against women.
Bigots come in all shapes and sizes and creeds and credos.
And
this is the thing.
To define a whole people by their faith, the idea that, you know, as an Iranian, I can't celebrate Nowruz, which dates back 2,500 years, just because I'm a Muslim, is absolutely crazy. Just as is the idea that because I'm a Muslim, I'm an extremist. We need to get out of these labels.
Sorry, can I just add to that? And indeed, one of the major fundamentalisms at work in British culture today is atheist fundamentalism, not simply religious fundamentalism. Because atheist fundamentalism is even more dangerous to some degree because it actually denies the existence of a person.
Well, you're going to make that illegal, or what? I mean, what are you doing here, Connor?
I don't want to make it illegal.
Well, let's speak. I mean, let's speak to Abu Raya, who's here from Muslims Against Crusades, formerly Islam for UK, which was banned.
That's not correct, no.
No, what's not correct?
that will form Leave Islam for UK.
Were you ever in that?
No.
Okay. Were you in
Our organisation is
Al-Muhajirun? Were you in Al-Muhajirun?
Our organisation is called Muslims Against Crusade.
All right. Well, Islam for UK and Al-Muhajirun were both banned. So you know, as a government would have it, so bad they banned them twice, frankly. And
where did the freedom go there?
Yeah. Where did the freedom
exactly.
go? That's
so it's oxymoron here.
Where's your freedom to burn poppies? Is that what you're saying?
Islamically, it's allowed for me to burn poppies, or for any number. The highlight of the issue is the more bigger thing. We understand that the war against Islam and Muslims, David Cameron is the two-headed snake in charge of the crusade against Islam and Muslims in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Islam does not allow you to disrespect other people. Absolutely not.
Well, can I just say,
he also disagrees with
Abu,
killing
there is a rider here. There is a rider. Most Muslims in this country think you are an utter embarrassment.
Why is that?
Because
we call for the Sharia.
Yes.
We call for a better way of life, a superior way of life. Than the quagmire we face here today. We have recession. We have colleagues of David Cameron stealing all the money. They have gardeners on second pay.
You can have your own way of life.
We have a superior way of life.
Wait a minute. Vanessa Shah, this is what this speech is all about. Are other Muslims doing enough to condemn people like him?
Of course they are. Of course. I mean, this is the problem. That we do have our own debates. And I am perfectly willing to have a debate with you on Quranic base. I teach Islamic law, so I know what I'm talking about.
I should think that we should debate with people on our level. This is someone obviously clearly not practicing Islam. She says she's a Muslim, but she's obviously very...
I'm sorry, you are not...
She's not covered or anything like that.
Excuse
the basic
me,
fundamentals of Islam...
Islam is not
anyway,
a performance.
Going back to the...
Well, you don't believe in democracy, right?
Clearly not. I'm a Muslim.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
It's at loggerheads with Islam.
Right, Vanessa, if I may, Connor, you at the beginning you said we have to be wary of people who have views like this, stoning women, stoning homosexuals, stoning adulteresses. What should we do about people like our friend here?
I think we should give them free sponsorship to go to university and study theology.
I think we should listen to them very carefully. I think we should listen to them very carefully. We need to know this is what they think. If we suppress them, if we say you're banned, we won't find out.
But they're on the fringe. But they are what?
Then they will remain on the fringe if we find out what it is that they think. Islam is an enormously powerful political project which would change this country irrevocably if it became. Hang on a second.
Let me say something.
Hang on a second. Let Peter finish.
You think we're on the fringe? We're not on the fringe.
It's an enormously powerful political project which would change this country irrevocably if it became the majority religion. You will keep interrupting, you Muslims. Of course they are. Islam is a proselytizing religion which believes the whole world should be Muslim. And they would like this country to be Muslim. If we want to find out, of course you would. If you want to find out what they think, let them speak, and then you can discover you won't like it.
I will let you speak, and I will come back to you in 1 second. But I think it's on that point. Don't worry.
We're not on the fringe.
Hold that thought. You believe you have the truth.
Religion in this country. Even your show said that English women who are embracing Islam in their hundreds. So therefore, you can't say we're on the fringe.
Right.
We're over 8 million in this country.
Mohammed from the Muslim Public Affairs Committee. What about this accusation that extremist views, and most people think that Abu's views are right on the edge, really extreme, and many people, Muslims, find what he is saying utterly offensive. What about this accusation that Muslim communities are not doing enough to condemn people like him?
Well, to be honest,
well, he says that because they agree with him.
No, Muslim communities not doing enough. Absolutely not true. To be honest, a classic case in point is some time ago in Luton, when Al-Muhajirun were visiting Luton, a city. All the Muslims came out onto the streets to tell them that they were not welcome on our streets. They don't represent the Muslim view.
They don't represent the Muslim view.
That's right.
And David Cameron seems to think that's not articulated enough.
I mean, David Cameron is another story altogether. I would accuse David Cameron, in his own words, of passive tolerance. You know, his speech came on a day when the EDL, you know, an extreme...
English Defence League.
Yeah, an extreme far-right threat that is threatening, and it poses a great danger to everybody in this country. You know, they're speaking of... Are
they not a fringe as well? I mean, who poses the greatest...
They certainly are, but...
Well, who poses the greatest danger? Our friend here, Abu, or the EDL, for example, or are they equal?
See, freedom of speech is, you know, a detailed thing. You've got to look at the full thing in detail. I mean, you've got one case where you can hear a person's views. It is another thing to go out, let them to go out onto the streets and cause criminal damage, to actually, you know, incite racial hatred, religious hatred, and fear.
So, Alex Brammer, what do you think? We have to. I mean, if we stopped tolerating the intolerant, we'd lose half our guests on this programme.
I think you're absolutely right. I think a great characteristic of British society down the centuries has been its willingness to accept people for what they are, and so that tolerance is incredibly important. But our friend here says that at the fringe, or he's not at the extreme, he's not at the fringe. But what I worry about, this is an intelligent man, we can tell from the way he articulates what he thinks. However, what I worry about is there are much less intelligent Islamic followers, Muslims in this country, who listen to what he says and are led down a path of extremism which could cause tremendous trouble. And indeed, the victims of the 7/7 bombers, the victims of 9/11, they're the people I fear for, the families of those people who've been killed because of that extreme view.
And members of these groups have expressed support for those terrorists, yeah.
And the idea that the British government should be supporting or providing finance to groups, Islamic groups, which filter down into some of this extreme area is absolutely worrying. And I think David Cameron was absolutely
As a Muslim...
Where did the freedom of speech go there?
No.
Well, give the Baroness a little bit of freedom of speech.
Who gives you the right to tell me whether I am a good Muslim or not? Because of your eyes. You have no right to do that. You have no Quranic right to do that.
It's quite clear by the teaching of the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we judge from their parent, and the fundamentals of Islam you need to stick by.
God does not judge by appearances. Come on.
I'm sorry to say, you're not the main issue. The main issue is that the war that's going to...
About why we're sort of focusing on, say, Islam, for example, in
Because David Cameron did yesterday.
Yeah, but say, why is David Cameron also not looking at the extremists in Catholicism
David
and
Cameron, that he talks about this list of values, the British values, equality by race, sexuality and gender, a belief in democracy, things which signally, and Anthony pointed out, there are many sections of society don't buy into. He says to belong here is to believe in this.
Well, some
people reading some of your columns
It always used to make me laugh when George W. Bush would say about the Muslims, they hate our way of life. And I said, yeah, I hate our way of life too. And in many ways, my views on some things coincide quite closely with yours. In that I disapprove of a lot of the things which you won't tolerate. I disapprove, but I tolerate. I think that in a free society, people should be permitted to do these things. I will argue against them doing them, and I will argue very strongly for a society in which these things are discouraged, but I will not say I will not tolerate them. That's a distinction between me and you. By tolerating you, which I think I should do, one of the things I do is I allow you to say quite openly just how intolerant you are and what a menace your ideas would be to our society if they became prevalent.
But there is a very good example.
Challenge something which the Baroness said which went unchallenged.
Okay, yes.
Use of the word Islamophobia.
Yes.
As if those of us who look at Islam and say we don't actually want this country to be an Islamic country and be governed by Islamic rules are in some cases in some way governed by an irrational fear. On the contrary, or a prejudice. On the contrary, it's a post-judice. We've looked at Islam. We don't like its precepts. We don't want them here because we prefer saying here is we do not want the precepts of Islam here because we do not want to live in an Islamic society. That is a rational position. It is not a phobia and can't be classified as some kind of mental illness. It is a perfectly reasonable position to take. And people who want to take part in a civilized discussion should not classify the opinions of their opponents as phobias. They should take them on with reason, fact and logic, especially academics and professionals.
free speech.
We protect our women. It's okay for you to kill, bomb, gas, or rape even children and women and so on. So that's why the school, even in this country, when the war was taking place, the schools were closed. So I don't know what your argument is. But going back to the argument about David Cameron, there is a clash between civilization, between truth and falsehood. So therefore, it's at loggerheads, and David Cameron, Obama are in the head of one of them, and on the other side is Sheikh Osama bin Laden. So therefore, the Muslims will all automatically follow the Muslims.
I think there's a clash of civilizations. I'm Bradford born and bred. Recently, when the EDL came to Bradford in August, the whole of Bradford, all sections of the community, we had several priests, we had several imams, we had people of no faith, we had people from all sectors coming together to try and figure out a way to deal with that issue, and they dealt with it very successfully.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Thank you. Thank you all. We're going to leave that one. And you can join in that debate by logging on to bbc.co.uk